Hi, welcome to Hill and Ponton's live Q&A. I'm Shannon Brewer, and with me today is Carrie Baker, and we are here to answer your questions.
Hi, everyone.
We can just get started anytime. Nate, okay. You want to start, Carrie?
Sure. A. Hughes says, hello. We filed for his shoulder in 2011 and was denied because one doctor said it was degenerative, another impingement. It was denied in 2011, 2014, 2002, approximately 5. Need to file a CUE for TDIU now. I'm not sure there's a question in there. So I'm assuming, I'm just going to read between the lines here because I'm not sure what you're asking. If you're unemployable because of shoulder denied service connection, I'm not seeing the hook between that and a CUE claim for TDIU. Talking about CUEs, you're talking about clear and unmistakable error. Those are very hard claims to win. That's the highest legal bar that there is in VA. So an unmistakable error based decision made, assuming talking CUE denied TDIU in the past. Say that because the statement doesn't say that they denied it. If you've never been denied TDIU, there can't be a CUE for the denial. So it's not sure what your reason.
Yeah, I don't really see a question there either. If you've been denied for the shoulder and you need to get it service connected before you can go for TDIU, you don't necessarily need a CUE. You could just reopen with a supplemental claim if you have new evidence. A clear and unmistakable error would, possibly take you back to one of those earlier decisions. But like Carrie said, those are rare and they're hard to win. So, it's pretty fact specific as to what was in the file back then. Okay, next question is from Vet. The board remanded my claim for neurological behavior effects, including anxiety, to the RO. RO denied claim for veteran was unable to identify a stressor. Rules say that's only for PTSD. Easy appeal. Again, it's, everything with the VA is fact specific. You don't need a stressor for anxiety per se, but you do need some way to connect it to service. So if you don't have, you still need something that happened in service, whether it's a stressor that caused the mental health issues, or if it's symptoms of that anxiety starting to show up during service, and you're going to have that documented in some way. So you may not necessarily need a stressor, but you still need an event in service.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I'll have anything to add to that one. And I hope you guys can hear me a little better now. I didn't have my mic close enough to me, so. All right, Angela Morero, if I'm pronouncing that right. Greetings, VA granted me TDIU in the middle of my PACT Act claim and opened an increased rating claim of my 70% PTSD, 55 plus and static. If awarded, what should my effective date, what should be my effective date? ITF 5/30/23 or 8/10/2022? Kind of follow that question. So I'm not sure if you're asking about should your effective date of TDIU be one of those two dates or not. I'm guessing that's what you're asking. Santa, if you're interpreting that different, let me know. But as far as the difference between the two dates, I mean, it could be either depending on the facts of the case, and depending on the effective date of the I'm assuming the 70% PTSD. PTSD, if that's what the TDIU is based on, that's not limited to a PACT Act effective date. So that wouldn't be necessarily limited to August 10th of 2022. That would be most likely your date of claim. If the PACT Act claim is not done, and they later finish it and it goes earlier than the TDIU claim, you could always file for an earlier effective date for the TDIU if that supports it from that earlier date. So there's no one size fits all there for that one. It kind of depends on the facts, the more specific facts of the case. Could be either one.
I agree. Okay, so this next question is from Cardell Blevins. Hello, when submitting medical articles about your claim, is the link to the article or the full article itself submitted with your claim? Thank you. If you want the VA to read it, I would say you need to submit the full article. If you submit a link, they are not going to go and look that up, in my experience. If you want them to look at it, you need to submit the full article. And just, for purposes of this conversation, I generally find that they kind of discount medical articles unless it's related to your specific situation. So it can be evidence, but you need more than just a medical article making the link. It's generally a good idea to also have your doctor or some medical professional take a look at the file and say, in your condition, in your case, based on the facts of your case, there's a link. So the medical article may not be enough on its own, but yeah, I would submit the full thing.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, I would say, remember, we're in the world of the Appeals Modernization Act, or AMA. In depending on the appellate lane you choose, you have to go down that route. You're going to be limited to the evidence of record. They're not going to consider the link alone as the whole article. In other words, you may prohibit yourself from being able to submit the whole article later. And if it goes to the board and the board just has the link, and you want to give them the whole article, depending on the lane you choose, you may get yourself in a rut there. So yeah, absolutely, I agree. Submit the whole article. All right, another step, one of three. Third attempt service-connected obstructive sleep apnea, diagnosed in 2012, nearly 2 years post-retirement, and given a VA prescribed CPAP. First supplemental, January 24, included a DBQ for my PCP, December 27, 23, and a buddy statement. No in-person CMP, just a contractor IMO from the RN. For this supplemental, I submitted a new buddy statement and a private IMO from a TA, which is probably physician assistant. VA contracted VES to provide an IMO from an MD, and claim moved to decision phase. Now claim is back in development and VES is scheduling an in-person CMP. Why is this necessary if they already have an OSA DBQ? Is this a good thing? Half a dozen of one, six of the other. It might be a good thing. It might not be a good thing. You won't know until you get the results of the DBQ. Why are they doing that? Not to sound crass, but probably because they can. If you submitted a favorable evidence that's especially a medical opinion yourself, that should, if it's, as long as VA considers it adequate for rating, for all legal purposes, that should end your claim. All right, but in today's world, especially with sleep apnea, it usually doesn't. VA likes to deny that the sleep apnea claims. The examiners all around the country all speak in unison when it comes to sleep apnea, and that's usually in the negative. I say that because you usually can't get two examiners to give the same opinion on the same set of facts for nothing, unless you're talking about sleep apnea. and I know Shannon has, I've seen them work themselves into pretzels trying to figure out how to craft a negative opinion. You know, it's due to obesity, and then you prove that the obesity is a way due to service, be it, you know, bad knees, bad back, something that made you gain weight. Then they come up with something, another reason. Well, it's just due to the size of your neck. You know, they just keep going with negative opinions on sleep apnea. And that is probably why, you know, you gave them a favorable private opinion. Their mindset is, oh, well, we've got a private opinion. We need to go verify it with a VA opinion. There's an actual regulation that says no, they don't need to do that. But I guarantee you they don't know what that regulation is. And they all think that, oh, we have to go verify favorable private opinions with a VA opinion. Probably why you have that new one. You know, why are they trying to go out to an MD rather than a nurse? You know, that could be just who they have available at the time. You know, it could be by design. Without seeing the request, it's kind of hard to know. I wouldn't read that much into the fact that it's an MD. You know, at the end of the day, their opinion is not going to be more probative than the other ones just because they're an MD. It's going to be more about their reasoning and how they explain the opinion. But unfortunately, that's the game they play with sleep apnea. And that's also why we have to go to the board in a lot of those cases. So probably not what you want to hear, but that's just the nature of the beast when it comes to sleep apnea claims. Stan, you got anything on that?
Yeah, in general, I would just say I tend to advise my clients, if they schedule a CMP exam, just go to it. It's just easier if you can, if that's possible. If you don't go, they use that as an excuse to deny your claim. So I would suggest just go to it and then get a copy of the report and see how you need to respond to that. But Carrie's right; they do not like those sleep apnea claims.
I'll give a quick shout out to Manny Gonzalez. Hi, back to you, Manny. I appreciate that. And Simplify.
Let's see, you've got an addendum on that one, Carrie.
Oh, sorry. Another step, addendum, just received notification that I am not getting an in-person CMP. I will have another records review IMO, 2 contracted IMOs for this 1 supplemental claim. What could this mean? You know, that right there does not change anything I said before. It's not uncommon at all for them to do just a records review medical opinion. If the record already establishes that you have sleep apnea, you know, you could look at it lots of different ways, but you know, the in-person exam is not going to establish that anymore. You know, unless there's something that they had to look at you in person for as the cause of the sleep apnea, I would say it may not make a difference. Now, if you had a case where they had to look at something, you know, maybe you have a service-connected disability that's contributing or causing the sleep apnea that they had to physically look at, you know, and they didn't, and you end up going to the board, you could use that as an argument to detract from the probative value of their negative medical opinion because they didn't take into consideration everything that they should have. One, which would be looking at you physically and looking at the other service-connected conditions if an in-person exam would make a difference. It sounds like from what you said earlier, you know, only 2 years from retirement, that your sleep apnea may have just began while on active duty. You know, snoring, that type of thing. In that situation, I don't know that an in-person exam would make a difference, to be honest. So yeah, it's still just par for the course, unfortunately, for those kind of claims.
Okay, this next question is from Love USA 999, part 1 of 3. Our secondary sleep apnea claim, another sleep apnea, related to my service-connected chronic sinusitis was denied due to the IMO from a respected MD was unclear as it states. The veteran's sleep apnea is caused by and or aggravated by his service-connected tinnitus and chronic sinusitis. The medical professional must state whether the condition is caused by or aggravated by your service-connected conditions. Thoughts? Thanks for helping all veterans. I would appeal that. What I'm understanding is you have service-connected sinusitis. The examiner said your sleep apnea is related to the sinusitis, and then the reasoning was that they didn't say it correctly, or that I'm not sure if maybe you're not service-connected for the tinnitus, and the examiner also added that one in there. I'm not sure exactly there, but that sounds to me like an appeal. I mean, the examiner did connect your sinusitis and your sleep apnea, so that should be service connected. Do you read that the same way, Gary?
Yeah, I agree. You know, it sounded like they were trying to give favorable opinion,
Yeah,
and maybe the rater interpreted it differently. Uh, and if that's the case, then the rater doesn't have that authority to supplant the actual medical opinion when they're with their own unsupported medical opinion. You know, they don't have the legal competency to do that. So one argument would be on appeal is that just that, if anything, they should have sent it back for clarity rather than just making their own interpretation
right.
uh, and denying it. So yeah, I would absolutely appeal it. And yeah, I think usually with those, unless you've done it already, you know, I would try that maybe with a higher level review and point that out to a DRO. A lot of times the DRO will send it back for clarity if there was a problem with the original opinion. John Johnson, how to improve your BBA claim? After the second remanded sleep apnea. After the second remanded sleep apnea secondary to tinnitus, should I head to the BBA with pes planus being denied from a higher level review? All right, Nate, go back to that first one. I'm not, that seems a little, how to improve your BBA claim after the second remanded sleep apnea, secondary to tinnitus. All right, go to the next part. Should I head to the BBA with pes planus being denied from a higher level review? I'm experiencing a disconnect here between the first part of your question and the second part. I think maybe you're talking about two completely separate, different claims or appeals. You know, so let me take the second one. That seems to be the question there. Yeah, if you filed a claim for pes planus and VA denied you, and you went to higher level review and they denied you, if you have no other evidence that VA hasn't considered, then you may have to go to the board with that. You know, you may be out of options there. Just because, I'm reading between the lines here, just because they've done something previously with a previous claim makes no difference whatsoever to the board. You know, they're going to look at your pes planus claim in a funnel, just as the pes planus claim. They don't care what they've denied in the past. That's a different claim, different set of facts, potentially different set of rules. So yeah, don't let one remand or one denial dissuade you from going to the board on another appeal. That one usually has nothing to do with the other, unless they're expressly related. Doesn't sound like these are. If I'm missing the point, I apologize.
Okay, this one's from ACS Soccer Highlights. How will a rater handle this? 2 CMP exams for the same neck condition, one with a positive opinion and the other not favorable opinion to service connection. Thanks for all you do. So there's a couple of different ways they can handle it. It depends which one of those came first. I'm assuming probably the positive opinion came first and they went out and got another one and that was negative, and then they're going to deny. If it's the other way around and the first one was unfavorable, the second one was positive, they may grant that, or they may send it out for another opinion, asking someone to make the connection, I'm losing the word, reconcile the two opinions and decide which one's right. You can also, get your own opinion on your neck, have your doctor, your orthopedic, your chiropractor give an opinion on that. And then you've got 2 favorables, 1 negative, but they will, it kind of depends which one of those was first. And in all likelihood, they'll send it out for a third opinion. Just my guess.
Yeah, I would think too that probably the positive one came first, and that's the VA we all know and love. Trying to tank the claim. Janet Henry, what is the best way to get obstructive sleep apnea secondary to PTSD?
You're on a roll today.
Yeah, there's a lot of sleep apnea with a very good medical opinion, preferably from a specialist, either mental health or a respiratory specialist. But yeah, I mean, you're just not, in my experience, you're just not going to get service connection without a very good medical opinion, even though there's evidence out there showing a strong association between PTSD and sleep apnea. The examiners will come back and say, well, there's no evidence showing PTSD causes sleep apnea, or there's no evidence of cause and effect for sleep apnea and PTSD. When examiners do that, they're using a legal standard that exceeds the actual standard of service connection, which is the benefit of the doubt standard. And so we see that all the time. And so you're just going to have to get a very good medical opinion. And you're probably, more often than not, going to have to win it at the Board of Veterans Appeals. And so if you get a good medical opinion, they deny it locally, I would just not waste my time. I would go to the board with it. I'm going to have to wait, most likely, a little while, but that's what I would do.
Yeah, I've never seen a CMP examiner give a favorable opinion on that, but we have won those with private opinions.
Yeah.
Okay, this question's from Alan Currit. Thank you for all you do. I am service connected May 2022, PTSD 50, cervical strain 20, tinnitus 10, and then May 2023, asthma 30, and denied sleep apnea. Total rating 75 rounded to 80, never appealed the sleep apnea. I have an intent to file March 2024. Denial was the BMI is over 30, never checked that on me. Outweighs Tara. Oh, okay. No nexus between veteran claims sleep apnea and combined effects of toxic exposure. Favorable is diagnosed with disability. Would it be worth it to pay for a nexus connecting sleep apnea to asthma? And would I be putting asthma rating at risk? Also have other claims on appeal. So I don't think you're going to win sleep apnea without a nexus opinion. To the asthma, your overall rating is 75. I'm wondering if you're working, because you might look at unemployability, which is probably more likely to win than sleep apnea. Just based on what we've been talking about, you can get it can be worth it to get the nexus opinion. Sleep apnea does often result from respiratory problems. It doesn't surprise me that they said Tara, not related to sleep apnea, because they don't ever connect that directly that I see. They want to look, they will go through Tara causing the respiratory problems, then the respiratory problems causing sleep apnea. Weight, BMI, that is a risk factor for sleep apnea. So that can be hard to overcome. I might look at unemployability if you're not working, but yeah, if you are and you need, you're still trying to get your rating up, then yeah, I would get the nexus opinion to connect the sleep apnea and the asthma. What do you think, Carrie?
Yeah, you're gonna need a nexus. I would probably, I agree with you. I think you said cervical spine or lumbar spine or something in there.
Mm-hmm.
With a BMI, a higher BMI with a respiratory condition, I might look to use both of them. With the musculoskeletal, as using the weight as an intermediate step between the sleep apnea and the musculoskeletal condition, and then using the respiratory as just, that's going to make most people more prone to sleep apnea as it is. What I would not do is use toxic exposure related to sleep apnea. Uh, Not saying it can't happen. Uh, the toxic exposure can certainly cause the respiratory issues, especially if it's Gulf War or beyond, Iraq, Afghanistan, any of that stuff. That's usually going to be presumptive now with the PACT Act. Uh, but I have yet to see anybody come out with just, sleep apnea solely due to a toxic exposure. Not saying it can't happen. I would not pursue it that way. Now, they may very well have gotten that Terra medical opinion on their own. Not saying you did pursue it that way, um, because they get them on their own a lot these days. But if you are doing it in as that theory of entitlement to service connection, I would not. I would stick with the respiratory, stick with the weight gain being linked to your musculoskeletal stuff, and seek a good medical opinion on that, just like Shannon said. Otherwise, you're not going to get to sleep apnea. And you said you had uh, other issues on appeal. I'd have to. I can't do the math in my head. Sorry, but if you're 75, rounded up to 80, not 100% certain 50 would get you to 85, which would round up to 90. It might, but might want to do the math on that or check their combined rating their combined rating chart, uh, which is at 38 CFR 4.25 if you want to look it up. But go to 75, slide over 50% and see what it comes to. It might come to 85, but I don't know that off the top of my head. And I'm sorry, and I wholeheartedly agree with Shannon on the TDIU. If you're not working, might be just an easier route to do that to get you to 100. All right, Zeb Moultrie, good evening. How does the claim accuracy request process work and the time frame? All right, so you're talking about a CAR request. That is essentially a higher level review. All right, that's all it is really. My experience with it is they want you to identify it as a claim accuracy request on top of the higher level review form. It should work. It's worked similar to what we've seen others. So it would just get a higher level review decision a little quicker, and hopefully they will just fix whatever is broken in the first rating, and that now. We usually, and Shannon may have more to add on this, we usually use them when it's a very blatant error, um, that's just cut and dry. If it's an appeal that could go one way or the other, I'm not using a car, because that's not really what they're intended for. If we see somebody granted, and just throwing it out there as an example, say 100% single disability and they have an additional 60, and VA forgets to bump it up to the housebound rate, the SMCS, then I would use a car to say, you're just not paying attention on your code sheet here. 1 + 1 = 2. You have to give SMCS. Something like that is what I would use it for. Otherwise, I would just do a regular HLR. Time frame, the HLRs in general only take 60 to 120 days. I don't know. Would you agree with that, Shannon? Sometimes
Yeah, I
quicker.
usually tell people 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. I haven't done a car in a little while, so I don't know if they're much faster. They should be because they should be easier, but I don't know. Shannon, what do you think?
So I only do them, like you said, if it's really super cut and dried, if they've made a math error or they just really, completely overlooked something that would change everything and there's no question about it, then I might use a car. You have to file them within 30 days of the rating decision. And I don't see them that much quicker. I mean, because you're getting a decision in 60 to 120 days anyway. So I did get one, I think one time in 2 weeks after I filed the appeal, but then I've gotten others that took 3 months. So they're not a lot quicker, but maybe a little. Okay, this one's from Rich Rod 1678. I was denied asthma sinuses in the 80s. I worked on floating dry for submarine. Do you think I can reopen under the PACT Act? No, not under the PACT Act, because it doesn't really apply to the PACT Act is pretty specific about the veterans it applies to, and I don't think it would apply there, unless maybe I'm missing something about when you served. But you can definitely reopen it just under a supplemental claim appeal if you have new evidence to make that connection. So you can reopen it, just not necessarily under the PACT Act.
Yeah, I don't think PACT Act applies to that. All right, Agent 2017, 1. Vet appealed RO denial for OSA, sleep apnea, and Hep B diagnosis within 10 and 11 months of discharge from active duty. BVA sent remand to RO for finding both diagnoses within a year of discharge. CMP exams held. 2. CMP doc said no diagnosis on active duty, so not likely service connected. VA has not reviewed yet. Your thoughts, please, on what happens next. Well, I mean, the simple answer to that, what happens next, is going to go to the rating board, and they're going to make a decision on that CMP exam. I would say, just based on what you provided in the question, you're probably going to expect, or you should expect, a denial. Not that it's right. If those were diagnosed within a year, you have strong evidence by that nature alone. That doesn't guarantee service connection. I don't think hepatitis is under 3.309A. I'd have to look to be 100% certain on that. The reason I say that, under 3.309A, there's a list of conditions that, if diagnosed within or manifested within a year of service, then it's presumed they're related to service. I know, sorry, somebody tried calling me. I know sleep apnea is not on that. I don't think hepatitis B is on. Do you know off the top of your head, Shannon?
I don't know. I don't think so, but I'm not sure.
But here's the thing. If the examiner said no diagnosis on active duty, so not likely service connected, that right there is an inadequate basis for a negative opinion. Just because something is not diagnosed during military service does not in any way, shape, or form mandate a negative medical opinion and thus a denial. So that's a mistake on their part. You can, if you can't overturn that locally, you can appeal that to the board. The board's usually pretty good at not accepting that as a basis for an adequate negative medical opinion. You just have to make the argument. You may not even have to make the argument. They might pick it up themselves, but I wouldn't rely on that. I'd make the argument. And so that's kind of, now you can always combat that with your own opinion. Sleep apnea could have obviously easily been there during active service and just not diagnosed. Hepatitis C, for Christ's sakes, hepatitis C can take years to manifest. So that one even more so. It's not going to just manifest 6 months after service and its origin be 5 months after service, right? It's going to take longer than that to detect it from whatever started it. It could have been sexual activity, could have been tattoos, could have been blood transfer, one form or another, in a combat zone. I mean, there's all kinds of things that could have triggered a diagnosis of hepatitis. So I would not accept that kind of opinion, not at all.
Yeah, just because something it wasn't diagnosed until a year after service doesn't mean that's when it started. They don't diagnose sleep apnea the first time you start snoring. It's the kind of thing you have to go do a sleep study, whatever. So get some buddy statements about what was going on when you were asleep during service, from family members or people you served with, and kind of talk about that you were already doing that thing where you woke up gasping in the middle of the night for air, and you were already snoring loud, and you were waking up exhausted, and get some other evidence in there. But the diagnosis does not mean that's when you actually started having symptoms. Okay, this one's from Angel Marrero. Greetings, VA granted me TDIU. Wait, we already had this one. There we go. Big time 20. I have 70% generalized anxiety disorder, 60% skin disorder, 10% tinnitus, and 30% migraines. I completed a higher level review to get the migraines up to 30 and the skin condition up to 60. I am not working and was not working prior to the HLR decision. I want to know if I should file just a supplemental claim for the migraines to get to 50, or should I file supplemental and TDIU at the same time? File it all at the same time. Your appeal should include the higher rating for the migraines and the TDIU, which is just another way to get a higher rating. So it's just that's an increased rating. So you want to file an appeal for all of it at the same time. Get it moving. Make sure you submit an 8940 form. I see people do that all the time where they appeal for unemployability and they don't file that form, and VA will deny, but just because you don't have the form, and that might be all you need.
Yeah, no, I agree. Don't ever wait to file the TDIU claim. Get it in there. Ray McCarty, what are the most DBQs ever seen for one sleep apnea condition on the same claim? I have 6. That's a good question. I obviously I don't keep count. I'm sure I've seen 5 or 6. I don't know that I mean, because we've seen appeals go back and forth to the board a number of times, and each trip back they get another 1 or 2 or 3 exams, and yeah, they can add up. I don't know. So Shannon, you?
Yeah, I don't know what the record is, but
Yeah.
it probably depends on how persistent the veteran is and how long that appeal's been going on. They'll get one every time you've got anything good that they want to try to combat. So 6 is a lot, but there's probably cases where there's more. I just don't know what the record is. Okay, this one's from Chatty Kathy. I received my award for TDIU, 100% permanent in total with SMCS, dated 28 January 2025. I still have 2 remaining claims for migraines and sleep apnea at HLR. Original date, October 2022. Both claims currently on a CAR request dated August 2024. If one or both remaining claims are approved, I would essentially meet the scheduler requirement for 100% P&T. Question: if that happens, will I lose my SMCS benefit because I will no longer have one disability rated at 100? Secondly, should I recall the migraine and sleep apnea claims to avoid any issues? So I have had this happen for vets before. They don't usually, even though you're not TDIU anymore, they don't drop the fact that you were TDIU based on that issue for SMCS purposes, or at least I have not seen them do that. You earned it. You have the SMCS, and they still acknowledge that even though you now have 100% permanent total, your one condition that was TDIU still is enough to have TDIU. So they generally don't reduce that SMCS that I have seen. As far as the migraines and sleep apnea, if you want to go back to work and you think you might be able to do that sometime, then probably go ahead and leave your migraines and sleep apnea claims open and see what happens there. it really just depends whether that trying to get to 100% is important to you, or, you know, whether there's any benefit to you in that. If you're not planning to go back to work, I don't know that I would continue to pursue those unless they go back prior to your 100%. So if your TDIU was granted for 2023, say, and these claims go back to 2022, there might be some retroactive benefit in there for you. I don't know what the procedural history of your case is. So I don't know if there's an advantage to you in leaving those open. If there's not, if all the claims were filed at the same time and you're not going back to work you don't plan to do that, so you don't need 100% scheduler, I don't know that I would pursue them. Probably if your ratings are that high and, if your ratings are solid, there's probably not that much of a risk in it, but anytime the VA's in your file, they do have the opportunity to look at all of your claims, and reductions do happen. So I can't say that there's no risk in leaving it open. So it's kind of a judgment call whether there's a benefit to you or not.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. If you're not going back to work, there's no earlier effective date, I would not pursue those. Patrick Morrissey, VA is demanding I fill out a 4142, even though the form says the best way is for you to go and get the notes from your doctor and upload them, which I have already done. Okay. I don't think there's a question there. But so here's the thing, people looking at the case trying to get you to fill out a 4142 are most likely operating on autopilot. They have an end product, a work item that's telling them this needs to happen. They're not looking in the file to see if you've already made it happen. They're just sending you the form. If you are sure you've given them everything, there's nothing else to give them. I would simply send them in a little letter saying, I appreciate your opportunity for me to fill out a 4142, but I provided you all of my private treatment records already. There are no more to be obtained. And it's that way when a rater does look at it, all right, they see that in there, and you've put the issue to bed. If they send you another one, same thing. It's somebody just operating on autopilot and not reading what's in the record, which happens all the time. They do not read hardly anything in the record as far as the VSRs go that do that development. So I wouldn't sweat it other than giving them a little letter.
Yeah, I do the same. You do not have to fill out a 4142, whether they want you to or not. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to. You can give them the records if you want them to have them. And some people don't like the VA digging around in their medical records, so they want to just give them what they want to give them, which you're entitled to do. The 4142 is to allow them to request records on your behalf. So if you don't want them to, then you don't have to. But I do agree with Carrie. I'd send a little note saying you don't need it. I've already given you all the records that there are. Is there a bruxism DBQ? This is from Happiness. I don't know that. Dental, there's some, yeah, it might be part of the, like a dental DBQ. I don't actually know that. I don't know that I've ever seen one, but that doesn't mean there isn't one, unless it's just part of the dental.
Yeah, I don't recall ever seeing one specifically for bruxism, but I would put money on the fact that it might be part of the dental DBQ. I think there's a question in there on that. Yeah, I'm almost certain, but I could be wrong on that.
Same. That's, yeah. We think it's part of dental, but we're not sure.
Ed Ham, I just got TDIU today, but the VA only went back to 2020. It should have went back to 2013. How do I fix this error, and how long will it take? You fix the error by appealing the effective date of the rating you just got today. Odds are you would want to appeal with a higher level review, or you could take it straight to the board. Most of the time, giving them new evidence is not going to resolve your earlier effective date claim. So, you got to come to the decision or the conclusion yourself. Do you want to fight it at the board? Do you want to fight it at the local level? And why is it that you think it should be 2013? Because you want to do more than just writing them and saying, I want an earlier effective date to 2013. You're asking for an additional 7 years there. That's a lot of compensation. They're going to want some reasoning behind it. Is it, and they're going to want to see a claim pending from there or some reason to get to 2013. How long will it take? Depends on which route you choose. If you go a higher level review, like we said before, a few months. If you go to the board, there's a few factors there. If you're over 75, it's only going to take a few months, 3 or 4 months maybe. If you're under 75 and not terminally ill, not homeless, not going through financial hardship and all that, yeah, it could take a few years. So that's now the board's going to make a better decision most of the time than the RO on something like that. But it depends on why you think it should go to 2013. And not to speak for Shannon, but I know there are sometimes I would look at a case depending on what's in it, and I'm just going to know, or at least assume, that the RO is not going to grant it. And I'm just be wasting time to try to argue it at the RO, and I would just go straight to the board. Some clients may not like the fact that it's going to take a little bit longer, but I don't want to waste 6 months or more at the RO that's not going to do any good when I can spend that same amount of time waiting in line at the board, and I have a better shot at winning the case. Just me, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, I agree. It depends why your effective date should be earlier as to where you want to go to appeal that and how long it's going to take. Keep in mind that the general rule is you can only go back as far as the date of your claim. So if you had a 2013 rating decision that you didn't appeal, you may not be able to go back to 2013. Not saying never, because there are exceptions to the rule. And that's kind of what Carrie was talking about. If it's one of those exceptions, regional office doesn't get those right all the time. So that might be the kind of thing you'd need to take to the board, but just be aware that the general rule is it's the date of your claim. So if you have older unappealed claims, you have to have an exception to get back there. Okay, this question's from Another Step. I am service connected for rhinitis and filed for hives as secondary to rhinitis and environmental hazards. I submitted a DBQ from my civilian ENT and an IMO from a civilian PA, but the VA denied my claim, stating that the medical opinion we received from the VA Medical Center was more persuasive than your private physician's opinion. I never had an in-person CMP exam, only a records review by a contractor. Knowing this, would you recommend filing a second supplemental appeal with additional evidence, requesting a higher level review, or pursuing another option? So I will say, if the only claim you're talking about is hives, it's probably not going to rate all that well, because those are the kind of thing that come and go, and skin conditions in general, the sort of thing that comes and goes, unless you're taking some pretty high power corticosteroids or something, systemic steroids. I don't know that that's going to be a real high rated condition. It might even be a 0. So before I put too much effort into getting another medical opinion, I would just keep that in mind, that I wouldn't want to spend a lot of money on that unless this is a pretty severe case of hives that you get. As far as, them saying their CMP examiner is better than your medical opinion, that they always say that. So I can't say that that's good, bad, or indifferent. Probably a higher level review appeal, they're going to just that sounds like a rubber stamp situation. I'd probably file a supplemental appeal with additional evidence there, but with the caution that I wouldn't want to spend a lot of money on an IME unless this is, I mean, on a medical opinion, unless this is a pretty severe hive situation.
Yeah, I agree, especially on whether it's severe or not. And as you were saying that, one thing I was thinking about was, rhinitis is essentially seasonal allergies.
Right.
And I'm not downplaying anything.
No.
Don't get me wrong. Hives that go along with seasonal allergies, that's what we're talking about here, may already be considered a part of the rhinitis. And so not knowing the whole medical situation, it could be a situation where you're already service connected under rhinitis for because if you're service connected for Parkinson's, they have to consider all the residuals of Parkinson's, right? If you're service connected for seasonal allergies, what are all of the residuals of seasonal allergies? And does your current rating take into account the hives or not? They may not, but it may be a rating issue instead of a new service connection issue, if your hives are part of the seasonal allergies rather than a separate disability secondary to it. But again, hives, my experience with them is that Shannon's right, they come and go, and getting a higher rating for that stuff can be difficult. But that's all I really had to add. All right, Carlos Fuentes, currently AD and will submit BDD in 2 months. So that's active duty and will submit a benefits delivery discharge claim in 2 months. Onychomycosis diagnosis, I've been prescribed with terbinafine for 12 weeks, which qualifies for 30%. If I receive 6 months the same meds, I qualify for 60%. I'm not sure about that. Is there? Oh, you're asking if you qualify for 60%. I don't know. I'd have to look that up. That's just, and I'm just speaking off the cuff here. That seems a little high for onychomycosis, unless it's a really, really severe case of it. If you're talking just based on the medicine, I think you might be reading the schedule wrong, or somebody might be giving you wrong info. But I don't think I've ever seen even the 30% for onychomycosis. I could be wrong on that. If it's systemic corticosteroids or something, I'm not sure. But I'd have to look in the rating schedule. I don't know that off the top of my head. You're not allowed, none of you are allowed to tell anyone I said that. That's
you don't have that memorized, Carrie?
That's the rule, and no one's allowed to know I have to look anything up.
Yeah, I don't know that one off the top of my head either, but I agree 30% and seems high and 60% seems really high. So I would want to see look up the diagnostic code for that and read that yourself rather than rely on if somebody's telling you that that's a 30% rating. I'm not saying it's not, but I am not sure that it is. Okay, this question's from a vet's life. I am service connected for migraines, major depressive disorder, and rhinitis. I have a diagnosis for sleep apnea. Do I have a case as secondary? You do, yes. You need a pulmonologist or your mental health doctor to make that connection for you. And yes, you do. You definitely do have a claim. So I would file that and try to get a medical opinion on that, your doctor or a private doctor to do that. Because as we've said with sleep apnea, VA is probably not, their C&P examiners are not going to say that's service connected right off the bat, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would only add one thing to that. It sounds like you've not filed that claim yet. I wouldn't wait because the respiratory, the rating schedule for respiratory conditions is in the process of being updated. I think we probably all said this before. Um, and the new version, once it comes out, is going to limit sleep apnea to a 10% rating. Yes, that's by design. But if your claim is pending when the law changes, then you get the better of two versions applied to your claim, which is obviously the higher rating. If you wait to file it until after the reg comes out, then you're going to be limited to the 10% that's going to be in the updated schedule for rating disabilities when it comes to the respiratory system. No, if you're already 50%, they're not going to take it away. So I know a lot of you are probably wondering that, you know, but it will affect brand new claims from that point forward. So get your claim in now on that. And yes, I think we'll see a lot less sleep apnea claims once that comes into play. But I make a prediction. If I can I make a prediction, Shannon?
Sure.
Okay, I predict that sleep apnea claims might get easier to win when they're only worth 10%.
Agreed.
I might be wrong.
I'm not taking your bet on that one. So yeah, that's they're going to be less willing to fight them, I think, when it's not a 50% rating anymore. I don't disagree with that. Okay, I think we have time for 2 more questions.
Okay.
This one's from OGO. Is the VA going to get rid of TDIU? We are living in uncertain times, and I was worried. It comes up every few years, you know, that they're going to make changes to things. I've been doing this for 15 years, and they've talked about it every time there's a change in administration, you know, either changing TDIU or changing VA benefits, and it hasn't happened. So hopefully not. You know, obviously we're going to keep an eye on it, and if we see anything that we're worried about, we'll let you know. But I think if you already have TDIU, you're probably in good shape. I don't see them going back and taking that away. They have made it harder to get, you know, in the past few years. We used to be able to, we had a little more liberal standard with vets who were working part-time and things like that. And that has gotten harder over the past few years to get TDIU for veterans who are working. But I don't see it going away completely, at least not yet.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I've been doing this for 26 or 27 years, and same thing as Shannon. It's always been on the plate as a point of discussion, and it's, you know, it would require some serious gall. I'm trying to think of the best word to do it and be successful at it.
Yeah.
But it's always in the budget, the VA's proposed budget. It's in there almost every year, which there's just a set of proposals. And there are very versions of it. You know, some is take TDIU away if a veteran's on Social Security disability, or take TDIU away if a veteran's collecting Social Security, or means tested. I mean, there's all kinds of various weird suggestions out there. It's going to take a lot of, you know, because somebody is going to lose elections over something like that, in my opinion.
That's very unpopular.
Yeah. So I wouldn't lose sleep over it right now. Not at all.
Okay, last question. This is you, Carrie.
Eliezer Frias. If I am butchering that, I apologize. Hey, thank you for what you do. I finally got my 100% PNT thanks to the information offered here. Well, you're welcome. I got mental health at 100 and other ratings that add up to 60. How do I get SMCS? Will they reopen my whole Is that the end of it? No, not another part? Okay. Oh,
Claim.
claim. Okay. Okay. So first off, if you've got a single 100 for mental health, and like your statement said there, and you already have other conditions that that come up to 60%, you should already be at SMCS. Like I said earlier, it's a 1 + 1 = 2 thing. If you have that and they haven't given you S, then they have made a mistake. It's not a matter of you filing a claim to get it. They screwed up. Okay. Now, I would just playing devil's advocate, not knowing all the facts of the case. Obviously, if you're at 100, single 100 for mental health, it's fairly easy to know. On the other disabilities, are you adding them up and are they coming to 60, or are you combining them and they're coming to 60? Because if you add them and they all come to, let's say, 60 even, well, VA doesn't, keep in mind, VA doesn't add them. They use a combined rating chart. So what adds up to 50 or 60, I should say, could combine to 50, right? And so I've seen tons of people look at it and go, well, I'm 100 + 60, when they're really 100 + 50 or 100 + 40. Not saying that's the situation here, but make sure you're not making that mistake. And if you're not, say you have another disability that's rated 60% even, or they combine to like 80 or 90%, so there's no doubt you're at least 60%. Then VA's made a mistake. That's where I would consider, maybe a car or something. If you do a higher level review on something like that, do it as a car or not as a car. Either way, I would do a higher level review. And if that's their mistake, they're just going to fix it without opening up the rest of your claim, because you want to make the issue itself entitlement to a special monthly compensation at the S rate, because I have a single 100% plus an additional 60, and you didn't pay me the S rate. And that's it. Also look at the amount you're getting per month, match it up with the chart in the book, make sure you're right. So before you go appealing, just make sure you know what you're appealing. But that's an easy fix in the world of VA as fixes go. So, they're not going to open up the rest of your issues, because you're not going to raise those issues in your appeal. And don't raise those issues in your
Right.
appeal.
I was going to say, on your claims, on your appeal form, specify entitlement to special monthly compensation S. You don't want to appeal all of your claims and all of your ratings, just that. So, well, I think that's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Gary. You got one more?
I was going to say, to kind of build on that. One thing to know about the HLRs is, and this may help you decide down the road what to do, especially if you're worried about VA taking something or opening up something. One, they're only going to look at the issue that's before them. But two, HLRs in general, according to the statute, they are prohibited from doing something less advantageous to your claim than the previous rating. In other words, unless something is what they consider a clear and unmistakable error, by law, by statute, they are not supposed to go in and do something detrimental to your claim. Not saying that never happens, but the law's on your side there. And most of the DROs, they got enough work to do. They're not going to bring that on themselves. So just keep that in mind. You're usually safe with a higher level review. That's all I had to add.
Yep. I don't have anything else either. So thanks for joining us today. Somebody will be back next week to answer your questions, and thank you for your service.